Thoughtful, articulate, artist, gifted, grammatical. Circular sources brimming with rich, flammable food for your thoughts, plated a different animal. Rounds on me, keep tabs, we insurmountable. Swerve, hey, Merle.
Hey everybody, happy Tuesday and welcome to another What's on Your Mind. It's still March, so it's still Women's History Month, which I'm excited about because I have some really great guest psychologists and psychiatrists that I'm speaking with this month. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for the invitation. Happy Women's History Month.
Thank you, you too. So I was just letting everyone know that it's Tuesday night where I do my What's on Your Mind and talk about different mental health issues and concerns and things like that. And so this week I'm speaking with some awesome women doctors, including you. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Dr. Afiya Mbilishaka. I'm a clinical psychologist and I have a private practice, and I also do hair. So I have something called Psychohairapy, where I use hair as an entry point into mental health services, stylists and barbers and community members, mental health first aid.
Nice, that's awesome. And I love the concept of it, and I wanted to get into that a little bit more. But to start with, you started in hair, right, and styling before you became a psychiatrist.
Yeah, well, I definitely was always doing hair. I would do hair, my family's hair. So unofficial hairstylist, and then went to school and got my PhD in clinical psychology from Howard University.
Okay. And then when did you or how did you think to combine the two?
Okay. So I remember when I was in college at the University of Pennsylvania, where I went undergrad, and I was doing everybody's hair, like all the Black students' hair, since it was a predominantly white institution. And I remember talking to my Aunt Brenda on the phone one day. She's now an ancestor, and telling her, should I study psychology after I graduate or hair? And so she said to me, well, why can't you do both? Now, I don't think she was trying to tell me to do both at the same exact time, but
Yeah.
then I interpreted it and thought, I can do hair and psychology together. And so that's kind of the birth story.
Mm-hmm.
Hair.
No, I love that. And I mean, a lot of times when you think about it, that's when you're spilling your guts, right? It's usually either your bartender or your hairstylist is when you're giving them all the information.
Exactly. And I think that going to the stylist is healthier than the bar. So
Yeah.
a safer space to unload all the things that are on your mind, right? So even a checkup from the neck up, I like to talk about.
Yeah, I like that. So how does the process work?
Great question. So it's similar to the hair care process in terms of that initial consultation, making sure that what the client wants matches with what the hair care professional or psychotherapist wants, in terms of goals, actually going through and having physical touch, which we cannot do when we're having therapy sessions.
Yeah.
Out to touch any of my clients, I would lose my license. But in the hair care world, it's very much possible. So even thinking about those, I give a good knuckle massage and do my shampoo. But yeah, it's basically an informal process in terms of how to actually actively listen. When people are sharing concerns, how to probe, how to leave silence, and talk about topics that are very relevant and pressing to people's lives. And even then, just like a regular therapy appointment or a hair care appointment, scheduling follow-ups, right? To touch in. I want to know what happens with that job interview. Let me know how this date, right? In terms of understanding that the story always continues.
Yeah, I absolutely love this idea, by the way. Even as you're talking, how can we do this in Delaware? Because this would be amazing. So do all of your, because you mentioned mental health first aid. So if someone is in the cosmetology world, this is how you would say it, and they wanted to be a hairologist, is that what they would do? Just get the mental health first aid certificate?
Yeah, so I actually offer a training. So I offer a psychohairapy certificate. It is a 12-hour course. So far during the pandemic, it's been virtual because I haven't quite gotten back into large classes. But a 12-hour, usually over the course of 2 days, virtually and going through different exercises, I do a very, very thorough, in-depth review of hair history, because I think that that's core to understanding how to use hair as an entry point into mental health, to really understand the science and history of hair. And so there's like practical skill sets. We actually test people's active listening skills and give feedback. So the certification is always happening. The next one is not until May, but you can see on the website when we're doing it. The original trainings actually were part vacation, part training. The first official psychotherapy certification was in Cuba. Actually,
nice.
Of 10 stylists. Well, it was a mix of mental health professionals and stylists. And we were in a mansion in Cuba, like, and learned how to make cigars, horseback. So
Nice.
I wanted to have experiential aspects of really tapping into our own internal reservoir of healing. And so setting it up for this sort of community-based approach, since we never work in isolation, to have community build and grow together.
Right. No, I think that that's great, and especially having it in that setting so people can get to know each other while also, learning.
Exactly. And in Cuba, you can't use your phone. So that was even part of it, that there still are, everybody's still in touch from that first initial training, because you're with people. You can't like, oh, let me go check Instagram real quick. You don't have access to Instagram. So.
Yeah. Someone was asking where you're located.
Okay, I'll identify myself as location independent. In terms of a therapist, I am a licensed psychologist for Washington, D.C. and New York State. And so that's where I practice. But, this is still a pandemic world, so I'm somewhat nomadic.
Yeah, which is like the one nice thing about the pandemic, is being able to be a little bit nomadic. Which is nice. It's almost sad to see everybody pushing towards going back to normal, when obviously for some jobs you need it. You have to have a location and all that. But there are so many jobs out there where we've realized that we don't, and it allows people to be, nomadic. It also allows people with disabilities to participate in things more than they ever could. So like, it almost makes me sad that everyone's just pushing to get back to the way things were, because I was like, I don't necessarily agree that it was better before. I think that better is somewhere in the middle of the two.
I agreed. Yeah, it's funny because I always believed in, having a therapy office and having this very traditional approach to walking my client in, or offering tissues, but I feel like it's much more intimate now. Even thinking about, I get to be in their homes and see their.
Yeah, you feel like more open to just talk. Like, I know, like with mine, like, yes, going to the office and all that, but like being able to just be home and be comfortable and talk, like I feel like I'm just talking.
Yes, they're and saving money on parking, because I was about 2 blocks from the White House. It was $20 to park in the garage in the building.
Yeah.
Just even saving time and money has definitely been a benefit. But yes, I think maybe one day I'll get an office again, but I know not.
Anytime soon. Yeah. I wish we could like keep on the staying at home for the work part and then like be out for the fun part. Like there's my happy medium. Even though I know my fun part is some people's work part, but that's because you either way have to have some people out at some times, unfortunately. How was Hairology received?
So I've been getting a lot of positive feedback from psychotherapy in terms of the people who are trained in it, and then even sort of seeing the trickle down effect. So I think maybe it was in 2020, there was a journalist who wanted to sort of see the ripple effect. And so interviewing clients of stylists who had gotten trained and just saying how they noticed the difference in terms of being able to process and talk about stress and manage stress, that there was evidence that even someone who hasn't gone through the training receives the benefit, right? that if you really want to be a holistic and competent hair care professional, you need to know how to talk to people.
Yeah.
Especially during this time, because remember during the early part of the pandemic where people were like, don't close salons and barbershops, people were upset and protesting and
Yeah.
saying that's an essential business. And so I know that salons and barbershops reopened sooner than schools and things like that. And so this was the major point of contact that people were having with like the outside world and the conversations that were happening. And people, school doesn't necessarily prepare people about mental health first aid or anything with mental health. So with the sort of accompanying mental health crisis that came along with the pandemic, it's really important that people are armed with the skill set to process and do active listening and refer. That's even training to refer to a mental health professional when needed. So.
Yeah, I think that's great, just because it opens up another spot for them. Like you said, a lot of people went back to the hairstylist and things before they did anything else.
Yeah.
For those that are, helping to not administer, but, provide the service, how or what are tips that you give them so that they don't become overwhelmed or overloaded? Because I know even as therapists, with everything you hear, you get all that. And then I'm sure as hairstylists, you get all that anyway. So now you're getting double whammy. So how do you help them get through that?
Wonderful question. I think that a lot of helping professionals have struggled with this. A part of the course even includes processing boundaries. So I love the book Set Boundaries, Find Peace. And I've actually incorporate some of the strategies from Nidra Tawwab Glover into the course in terms of how do you say when you're available versus not available, what sort of space do you need between clients to like sort of refresh yourself, what are your limits, do you give out your phone number to clients, do you not, your policy on how fast you respond to things, or even really needing self-care rituals. I always talk about in every single training that I do the basics of self-care, right? So I'll even pose it to people watching to you as well, in terms of, I always say, how many of us, and maybe you could press a heart or something, how many of us are drinking at least 8 cups of water a day? Are you doing it? I didn't.
Some days I try.
Yeah.
But if I'm not trying, then no, absolutely not.
So you have to be like those bottles that marks things up.
Yeah.
So hydration is critical to even self-care and sustaining yourself when you're working with emotions and the bodies and stuff like that. Another thing is how many of us, put some hearts or something, how many of us are eating at least 4 to 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day? Anybody? Okay. All right. No. Okay. Or even how many of us are sleeping at least 7 to 9 hours a night? Okay.
I probably sleep that much in a day, just not all at once.
Okay.
Like a couple here.
Okay. Or even how many of us are exercising 4 to 5 days a week for at least 30 minutes? Okay, we can see a little heart there, but
someone gave a heart. Someone's doing what they're supposed to do out there.
Yeah, those are like core basic things that our bodies need, and it's interesting because it's what our bodies need, but it also helps us to manage stress, and it also is great for our hair. And so recognizing that these 4 basic things of eating healthy, getting rest, staying hydrated, and exercise are core to being a healthy helper. And so to overcommit ourselves and are exhausted, dehydrated, hungry, and those are not good traits in being a professional. Yeah, all that water you got.
Yeah. And I was actually just thinking about this earlier today. Well, I was scolding myself, but we'll come at it from a positive place, which is that, like, we know what we need to do to feel better, and we know what we need to do to, like, perform at peak level and be, all the things. So, like, why don't we do it? Like, it seems like it should be so easy, right? It's like, I could tell you exactly what I need to do. I can think back to when I feel my best and tell you what I was doing that made me feel my best. So then why do we keep slipping back into habits that make us feel horrible when we know that the end result is that we're going to feel horrible?
Exactly. It's like a public health professional's dream scenario to talk about, sort of this motivational interviewing, right? In terms of how do you actually take action and maintain the progress that you've made? What are the circumstances that are taking you away from actually taking care of yourself?
Yeah.
So I often sit with that question as a mental health professional and a hair care professional to just do better.
It's just one, yeah, and I think it's just one of those hard ones because I think especially like for me, because I'm such a like, you know better, you do better. So it would be one thing if you didn't know or if we didn't know, like especially for me, but like when you know and you know that you know, and then you're just like, yeah, but I'm not. And it's like, why?
And it's time consuming and expensive to take care of yourself sometimes. But taking a walk, I like to say, is free, right? And you can definitely find maybe free. It might not be filtered, but water most.
Yeah. Old habits and triggers. Yeah, that's true. There's usually a trigger that will send things back because then you look for comfort, right? Because sometimes doing the things that feel the best overall aren't comfortable or fun or make you feel cozy in the moment. So what someone was saying, like triggers will sometimes make you go back to a bad habit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know I enjoy comfort food. And so working on that. I love desserts. And so.
Yeah. So I know that it's, like we mentioned earlier, it's Women's History Month. And I was talking with Dr. Kristen last week, and we were talking a little bit about how anxiety is something that is high, particularly in women. What are some advice or tips that you would give to someone to help them manage their anxiety?
Okay, great question. Yeah, anxiety disorders are basically the top disorder for mental health. And so I definitely think that addressing your morning can be critical in terms of how to manage anxiety for the rest of the day. So, for example, doing these sort of morning rituals, and we can say a ritual is how we prepare our mind, body, and spirit to receive a blessing. How do we prepare ourselves for what's about to happen? Because oftentimes anxiety is that anticipation of something bad happening, right? It's fear of the future. And so one thing to do is as soon as you wake up to journal, like the first thing in the morning. Oftentimes I recommend my clients to journal when they're overthinking. And so overthinking can often be associated with anxiety. So just doing some sort of like brain dump or reflective experience. A lot of creatives do this process of morning pages where they write 3 pages of just sort of a conscious stream of thought. Just what is on your mind when you are waking up. It can be really good then in the morning to do a meditation. I am terrible with meditation.
I can only do guided ones.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. So I have to look up meditations on YouTube or an app.
Yep.
It's like a British accent.
Me too. It's weird. Like I had accent. Well, either British, or I like guys. Like for some reason, I've noticed that I like a guy's meditation voice more than a woman's, which is weird because normally I'm girl power. But
interesting. Maybe something about tone. Yeah. So doing, even if it's 5 minutes, even if you do a YouTube search on managing anxiety meditation, and it will just guide you through visualizations, breathing strategies that again get you into a state of preparing yourself for what's about to happen. It's really good to start the day with water and tea, right? Because it's interesting how there's overlap between dehydration and like panic, like in terms of what the body is doing, but it's not in a homeostasis, and so our heart rate can even be impacted if we are like that. moving the body. Yesterday, my cousin stopped by and was just saying, like, she said, motion is lotion, like just getting your body ready to move, because even like pain, stiffness causes stress. And so kind of getting into the flow, things like lighting a candle or even incense, because aromatherapy is so wonderful for and anxiety. So even having an essential oil like lavender, evidence that suggests that it lowers stress levels and things like that. I really encourage people to reflect on their morning. What I know most of us tend to do, is pick up our phone. That's like the opposite of that anxiety lifestyle. And so to actually put parameters and limits on screen time, and as best you can, in terms of not necessarily turning on the news immediately and watching things about Ukraine and COVID and hearing Republicans questioning Ketanji. So just, like really taking pause until you feel comfortable enough to enter the day. That might mean you have to wake up earlier, but in terms of having that time to savor the day before you go immediately into action.
Yeah, I've learned that that's very important for me and how I feel about the day. Like if I wake up and get right into my day, like getting ready for work or starting work, versus like if I wake up like an hour or so earlier and like ease into it and read and listen to my music and make my coffee, it just like the day just feels better. Especially like, because it's like, oh, work. So especially if like that's how you feel, then it's nice having like that not be your first reigning feelings of the day, that it's something peaceful and happy. And I find that work doesn't even feel as annoying to do because I'm in a better mood when it starts. You know what I mean? Instead of it being this thing that's waking me up from my happy dream and getting me out of my bed, it's now just the next task in the list of things I was doing that morning. And then you're like, oh, it's not so bad.
Yeah. That the morning ritual, I think, is having be able to manage the anxiety of the day.
Yeah, I would agree. So I know, one of the, I don't know if it's not a mantra, but one of the things that you're saying that you have right now, or focus, is hair, health, and heritage. So we talked about how hair and how health impact the mental health. Where does heritage fit in?
Oh, it's in everything, right? In terms of really identifying our cultural practices. I like to quote Dr. Wade Nobles in Understanding What Culture Is. He says that culture is a design for living and patterns for interpreting reality. So a design for living and patterns for interpreting reality. So just thinking about how we connect as community or connect with our ancestors, or that it's embedded in our hair, right? In terms of, this is literally the hair that my ancestors gave me. And I need to understand what rituals they engage in to take care of themselves, whether it was using certain oils or styling their hair in a certain way that prevented it from breaking. That when we study our ancestors, whether our personal or more general ancestors, the hair oftentimes was used in ritual, right? Whether it was a rites of passage, a baby naming ceremony, a wedding, that our hair is such a complex language system. And that, I basically can look at people at this point and tell a lot about their cultural understanding based on how they style and wear their hair. It speaks to how you identify yourself. And so the heritage piece is really identifying who you belong to. What's your tribe, literally?
Yeah.
Because that's how hair was used on the continent, on the African continent, that it literally could say, who do you belong to? And look at that now.
Yeah, that's interesting. And even with like just how you feel about yourself overall, being able to identify where you're from, who your heritage is, I think makes a huge difference. And I know with all cultures, but I think it's definitely something that African Americans deal with a lot, because yes, they know that they're from Africa, but that's like, what, 54 countries? Like, that's like saying somebody is from America and not knowing if they're Canadian or Brazilian. Like, it's those are two very different cultures. So for Africans, it's like, well, okay, I'm from Africa, but where?
Yeah, I think I love the way that you made that connection, right? In terms of recognizing that even within West Africa, there's so much variation in terms of rituals, religions, languages.
Yeah.
Um, so it's impossible to generalize to say that this is the one way African people do it, right? That
Yeah.
there's so many different types of African hairstyles. But what's common amongst them all is that every single strand is beautiful. So just to even see that commonality in there too. But yeah, just the richness of our,
Mm-hmm.
and I've in the past connected with Gina Page of African Ancestry. And she really tries to connect African Americans to the larger diaspora through testing. But even like having the idea that you can look back and connect with a specific ethnic group is really empowering. But even too, doing research and studying the variety of cultural practices and seeing which one you seem to connect with the most is also an option. There's even like spiritual readings and divinations that can be done to see who you are, whose lineage you belong to. So there are so many different ways, whether it's genetic testing or spiritual readings or just doing your own research to find specific ethnic groups on the African continent to feel like you're a part of.
Part of something. Yeah, that's great. And then another area where, since we're all talking about hair, another area where I think we really see like a connection between hair and mental health is that you can kind of tell when someone's going through it when they have a major hair change. Like, oh, I broke up with my boyfriend, I shaved all my hair off, which I may have done once. Or like suddenly new bangs, or suddenly like a whole new look, or something. Like you can tell like their hair is something that's a good way to tell. So like, why do you think that is? Like, what is the connection between us like wanting to change or needing to feel a change and like going straight for the hair?
Excellent question. And thank you for that self-disclosure. You're part of an excellent at a research study that I published called Strands of Intimacy. And I think maybe 74% of Black women said that they changed their hairstyle after a breakup or a divorce. Like that's what the data actually said.
Yeah.
So in terms of thinking about why this happens, again, thinking about how hair is connected to identity and maybe even relationship status, but also hair is the most malleable part of our physical appearance. We can't change the size of our eyes or nose or lips every day. We can't change our skin color. We can't change our weight so quickly, but you could literally change your hair every single day if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And so it is the part of our bodies that is the most easily manipulated. And since we tend to process top down, that's oftentimes what people see first, right? Somebody walking down the street might see their big hair before you see any other part of their face or their body.
Yeah.
To think about how, again, this is a marker of identity. And so when your mood changes or your relationship status changes, that this is a quick way to have a visible and visual indication of change that's going on within. So even across the African diaspora, haircuts were a big part of ritual, right? In terms of that someone has completed something, or even that someone is grieving. In a lot of West African countries, people will actually get their hair shaved when they are grieving. I remember I was speaking to someone, I think he was actually from DRC, but he said that he was so confused when he came to the US in the 90s because he was watching basketball and saw Michael Jordan was bald. Like, did someone in his family die? Why would he? Because anytime somebody was bald or shaved their head, that meant somebody in their family died. So like it indicates unity. I'm grieving. I can't even take care of my hair right now. So in a lot of traditional African societies as well, if your hair was not neatly groomed, it actually was indicative of a mental health issue, that you could not care for yourself. And so hair was communicating what was going on internally and mentally for you.
I think that that's interesting. Without even knowing that, we still all do it. Like we're still like, okay, I'm going through something. I'm changing my hair. And I think also though, just like, well, I think it's one of two things as well. Like I think part of it is like just the release, especially after like a breakup or you go through something tragic, and you're just like it's a way to literally take off the weight that you're feeling mentally, like your burden inside by cutting your hair, and then it's gone. And then I also think that when you're going through stuff, you just don't want to deal with your hair, because that was me. Like it was like one tangle and I was like, forget it. I was like, I can't take it anymore, and I just cut it all off. So I think that's part of it too.
And you it will grow back, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Grow back. I used to teach at Howard. Now I haven't taught at Howard in I think since 2015.
I'm just gonna take a look at some comments. I'm guilty, but I'm getting there. I do listen to a lot of, I think it said self-glow. I think that was when we were talking about morning rituals. There's a meditation app called Balance. There's a male meditation guide called Osofu. His voice is soothing and relaxing. I'll check it out. Thank you. Osofu. Yes to morning rituals. I notice a huge difference when I'm not intentional in my rising routines. Yeah, I definitely notice a huge difference. Someone said spiritual readings, but maybe they're just asking. And I definitely do not want just to break up. I definitely do not want just to break up, just wanting a refresher. And then someone said, I always tell folks that you crushed, oh, this is for you, that you crushed the debate. There's a debate you crushed?
No. Not.
Oh, well, you're crushing this live.
That was a setup. I'm not a debater. I was just going to Busboys and Poets in DC. So that's a total side note, but thank you.
Well, I thank you so much for making the time to talk to me tonight. I've enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, you have such great energy and wonderful questions.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I'm sure I'll have you back again, because I like to tap on my favorite people when I need them for fun conversations. So I'd love to talk to you again sometime in the future.
All right, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And thank you, everybody, for watching who joined us. This will be saved to the live. And now I'm also posting them on YouTube and Anchor and Spotify. So like tomorrow, you'll be able to listen to it in all formats. So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you all. Have a good night.
All right. Good night. Bye.